Hi, I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And we just got back from the Time Vortex to give you a review and recap of Doctor Who Series 10, Episode 3, Thin Ice. And be careful, if you haven't seen this episode before, you might want to come back later because there are plenty of spoilers. The episode picks up where the last episode left off in 1814 London, and it's the last great ice bear. And Bill brings up the idea that maybe it's dangerous for her to walk around because of slavery. And then the Doctor and Bill decide to get dressed up as the show reveals that there are monsters in the river below. Okay, let's talk about this opening, okay? We directly come into the scene. We see a little bit of the scene from the previous episode as the opening scene of this episode. And also, we get to hit on an aspect that time travel shows usually shy away from, especially Doctor Who's never dealt with this before. And we've seen other shows like Legends of Tomorrow, which is also a time travel show, sort of lightly step around this issue. But I like the idea that Bill doesn't really want to walk around 1814 because slavery still exists in London, which it did.
It did. It's maybe a difficult subject matter to try to address, but I appreciate since Legends of Tomorrow tries to touch on it sometimes kind of here and there, but they're a big ensemble show that has a lot to get done. Doctor Who is really just the Doctor and Bill, so it does give them a unique opportunity to explore that, and I think they do it really well.
I thought they did it really, really well.
Yeah. I like the way she refers herself in the melanin.
Yeah. Bill and the Doctor then walk out into past London as they talk about the rules of time travel. And the Doctor just says the best rule of time travel is to stop worrying about it. And then they go to the Frost Fair and the River Thames, where they watch everything and the Doctor makes a Jesus joke. Then they notice green little lights that are under the ice that lure a hobo to the thin part of the river, and it seems like the fish eat him. Then the Doctor gets robbed by some kids of his screwdriver, and then they try to run out to the thin part of the ice, and the lights under the water eat the little boy as the Doctor recovers his screwdriver. Okay, yes.
I have many thoughts about this.
Okay, what are the many thoughts?
First of all, the episode opens with an elephant.
Yeah.
If anyone can break through the ice in order to either go up and get a human or as a human to fall down, there's just no way the ice is going to be able to sustain an elephant. And as someone from a northerly climate, it really bothered me.
That 2-ton elephants out there on the ice?
Yeah, that like just willy-nilly they can break the ice whenever the story wants them to. I thought that was silly. It was very silly. But I like the idea of the Frost Fair. I think that's a really cute idea. The kids aren't wearing enough clothes. If the ice is thick enough to walk on, it's got to be cold. They need more clothes on. I don't care if they're street rats, but it does.
This is real Canadian ice weather information that you're getting. Criticism, yes, real Canadian ice criticism.
But I thought the Winter Carnival idea was a very sweet and whimsical, and it kind of
gives it a different look because you have a city and a snow motif.
Yeah, because I kind of want to embargo Victorian England from Doctor Who.
Yeah, for a while.
In a post-Madame Vastra world. But this was a way, you nailed it on the head, to present it in a visually different way than we're used to seeing it.
Yeah. I actually really like just Bill and the Doctor walking around this carnival having fun. I kind of enjoyed that. And I even like the moment where Bill brought up, it's like, hey, are you not seeing all these green lights underneath the ice? And he's like, yeah, of course I saw them. I just thought you wanted to have a bit of fun before we got down to work.
Yeah, you know? I like that a lot.
And then I like the idea that the Doctor is trying to get the con man to be like, hey, tell me your trick because I'm also a con man. And then he walks out of the tent and you learn later in a scene, you only get to see one or two, he's a meat pie, he was stealing meat pies. But then later on in the episode, you see that he maybe stole 20 of these meat pies for this guy.
Yeah.
I like the idea that the Doctor and Bill like to have a little bit more fun. He's being more relaxed with Bill.
I mean, Clara was so goddamn serious about everything all the time. It was such a drag. It is nice to see the opposite end of that as well, and that this Doctor is capable of that.
And then also let's bring up the time travel story of Pete. Because Bill was very concerned about stepping on a butterfly and changing the time stream.
Because Bill knows science fiction.
Yes.
Bill's a smart lady.
She reads science fiction, and she's probably seen that episode of The Simpsons where Homer
that's a great episode.
Steps on the butterfly and ruins the time stream. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. And I like the Doctor being like, yes, that's exactly what happened to Pete. And she's like, who's Pete? And then he tells her this whole story about a fake Pete.
I also like his implication that that's what happens every day of your life.
Yes.
So why start worrying about it now? The idea of that is very heavy.
Yes, it's very Gallifreyan. Freyan way to look at it.
Ah.
We then see Bill get upset because she's never seen anyone die before, and she doesn't want to be told what to think, and then the doctor replies, I'm your teacher, I always tell you what to think. Then Bill asks him if he's ever killed before, and he answers yes. And then we find out that the doctor has lost count of all the people that he's killed, just like he's lost count of all the people that he's ever watched die. Now, I want to talk about this. I want to stop here really quickly because I thought this was a really brilliant exchange.
I have different feelings.
I think this is an amazing exchange because the doctor talking about moving on. Now, this was something that Peter Capaldi's doctor fought with Clara multiple times. Clara was always like, how can you be so cavalier? And we actually have seen a version of this exact same scene in season 8 with Doctor after the Mummy and the Orient Express when he's sitting on the beach. And he says, he lifts a couple lines from that speech for this, where he says that sometimes you're put in a situation where the only decisions you have are bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you can't make a decision. You still have to make a decision. So his thing is that he's saying that, like, look, it's sad that that kid dies. I can't change that, but I can change the fact that more kids are going to die. And also, I like the fact that he avoided the question of how many people have you killed and also how many people have you watched die, because if you go from the Time War, this answer is billions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the answer to both questions, because he also killed his people and also watched them die. So the answer is billions.
I guess I didn't like this scene because I felt like we do this with every new companion, and I'm just kind of tired of it. Like, it's like, have you killed people? Like, you know the answer is yes. And then why would you turn around and ask somebody how many people you've killed? If you're not going to travel with him, then go back. You know, and it never comes to anything. Like, the character always, like, has to learn a lesson about it and about, like, the moral imperatives of being a Time Lord and blah, 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 blah. Like, I just thought that this was a tired scene that I'd seen before, and I didn't need to revisit it with a new character.
I think that of all the versions of this scene that we have seen,
this is a better one.
This is a better one.
Yeah.
But also, you need this scene in Doctor Who simply for the fact that, if you want to put it logically, none of us should ever travel with the Doctor. Ever.
Because you'll die.
Because you'll die. And you see people die every episode. It happens all the time. So to me, this is a legitimate conversation to have with the Doctor, and I think you do need it with every Doctor, because you need to explain that, hey, when Bill dies, she will, you could die. It happens every day. Don't think about it. That's what a lot of the Doctor's advice in this episode was just don't think about it, move on.
I guess I'm just okay assuming that conversation happened, and I don't need to see it for the third time in 5 years.
The Doctor then sees the children's hideout and gives them food and reads them stories. And then he learns the children are paid by a bad man on a ship to lure people onto the ice. Then the Doctor and Bill put on some old diving suits and wait on the river to be eaten, and Bill gets pulled over. Then they see the glowing fish and a giant creature that is covered in chains, a prisoner in chains. And then the Doctor and Bill leave the river to find the con man. They ask the con man if he's found anybody suspicious, and he sends them to a different part of the dock. They sneak in using psychic paper, and they see men making bricks of fuel made from the creature poop from the river that burns hotter than coal and burns underwater. Then the Doctor goes to Lord Sutcliffe's house, and Sutcliffe insults Bill, and the Doctor socks him. All right, there were a couple things in here. One, I thought it was very interesting that the Doctor decided to use old-timey 1800s diving suits, because he probably has modern-day diving suits in the TARDIS.
I kind of liked it, though. I thought it's a cool aesthetic.
It was a good look. I liked finding out that the monster was a prisoner. I thought that was a very interesting idea. I also liked the idea that the reason they were keeping this monster prisoner was not like to get it to kill people, which was sort of the reason, but they were like, hey, its poop is more powerful than coal.
It's a great fuel source, yeah.
Which I actually was like, that is a clever twist, because when you think about it, like, we use guano, like stuff like that. And then also I like the Doctor's 5-minute speech of being like, look, we need information on these people. I need you to shut up. And then the guy and she socks him.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great scene. What did you think about all this stuff?
It's a lot to unpack. The thing that I want to touch on that you haven't touched on yet is I really like the scene where he's reading the story to the little kids.
Yes.
Because just like 11, he has a soft spot for children.
He does.
He doesn't want, but when we've seen more of it this season than we've ever seen it before, but he definitely does, and I like those moments.
This season, well, also the previous season, with Peter Capaldi's Doctor, they've been leaning on a lot of the stuff that as soon as he gets to interact with any kid, you immediately can see, like, oh, this guy's a father.
Yeah.
Like, you get to see Peter Capaldi's father side out, because he has kids. He has kids in real life.
Yeah, totally.
And I that's what immediately, like, as soon as you started reading the story, I was like, oh, yeah, this is a real dad.
Yeah.
We're watching a real dad.
It's precious.
Yeah.
It's really precious.
Lord Sutcliffe reveals that the creature in the river has always been there in London. And then the Doctor gives an amazing speech that is a speech that progress is valued on the value that a species puts on an unimportant life. All right, now we're going to go really short here. I want to talk about this speech. This speech might be the high point of the episode.
Yeah.
Bill makes a point about it later where it's like, how old are you? And he says 2,000 years old. And she's like, are you really 2,000 years old? Is that how long it takes for you to do a speech? That's amazing. I thought that his thing were like, yeah, the progress of a planet and a species is not based on industry. It's based on the value that it puts on an unimportant life. Your life is just as important as the boy who died. Your life is just as important as the creature.
He's never met anyone who wasn't important.
That's true. In 900 years, he's never met anybody important. That's a Matt Smith line.
Yep.
I thought that line was great. And also bringing back the idea of racism in this world that the Doctor usually doesn't encounter.
Do you think that this speech will rival his moment speech, which a lot of people have thought up to this point was his defining speech?
Ooh, that sit down and talk?
Yeah.
Ooh.
No pressure.
In my head, it will. Now, the difference with that speech is because it tends to be that the greatest Doctor speeches are always ones where the Doctor yells.
Yes. Because he gets emotional.
Matt Smith with the Pandorica. David Tennant's not yelling where he goes like, I'm 903 years old and I'm going to save your life and everybody on this ship. He's not really yelling, but he's being very forceful.
Yeah.
Usually the soft Doctor speeches don't last. And the only one that I can think of in my head, and everybody in the comments, feel free to give me other examples down in the comments. The other soft Doctor speech that kind of stands out in my head is the line that the fourth Doctor says to Sarah Jane, where he goes, I am not immortal, I walk in eternity.
Yes.
Or I'm not human, I walk in eternity. And that's, he says it at that tone, and I'm like, oh, that's one that's sort of like transcended. And also he has another line that he says there, he's like, what's the point of being a grown-up if you can't be childish sometimes?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's another good one that he has. I don't know, like Peter Capaldi knocks it out of the park.
He's a great actor.
And it's so meaningful that I'm gonna say yes.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I also was impressed that they managed to make Lord Sutcliffe the dudiest dude bro in Victorian clothes in this episode.
He was wearing TARDIS blue as well.
I know, but he looks like the kind of dude on Facebook that you just scroll past.
Yeah. Very dude bro for 1814.
Yeah.
Sutcliffe then takes them to a tent full of explosives, and Bill tries to scream, but no one at the ice fair can hear them scream. The Doctor finds his sonic, and the fish with the lights are drawn to it, and that makes them eat their guard. Then the Doctor asks Bill to give him an order, save the creature or leave, and then Bill votes to save the creature, and the Doctor tells her to get everyone off the ice. All right, this brings up a couple of times. This brings up something that he sort of said in the pilot. Makes me wonder, is this season going to be about, or the theme of this season, because last season was all about the Doctor being obsessed with his duty of care, which I loved. This is like the second time in a row he said something like, or third time in a row, excuse me, that he said something very similar to, I serve the human race. And I wonder if that's going to be the theme of the season.
This is also every episode he's given Bill an opportunity to walk away.
Yes.
He always gives her an out where he's like,
Yeah.
I will leave you in the TARDIS. I will tell you where to go to be safe. I will take care of this. You don't have to get involved. Like I think it is him personifying the duty of care even more. Like he's willing to keep her safe and get his hands dirty alone.
Well, and in this episode too, he gives her the choice, which is very similar to the choice that the 11th Doctor had in The Beast Below with the giant whale, where Amy was like, "What the? You're gonna screw all these people in the colony?" And Matt Smith's like, "I gotta protect the whale."
Yeah.
And Peter Capaldi kind of gives her the same choice, but he's like, "Hey, if you want to walk away right now, I'll walk away with you." Yeah.
I was gonna say that's funny because it reminds me of the Christmas special where he's fishing with the sonic screwdriver. Like that's every time we saw the giant fish monster thing. Like that's all I could think of.
Yeah, interesting. Bill then sees Sutcliffe blow the explosive, and we see that the Doctor redirected the explosive force to free the creature from its chains. The creature then kills Sutcliffe, and the creature leaves the river and goes somewhere cold, as the Doctor predicts. Bill then brings all the children from the river and makes them all heirs of Sutcliffe so that they can live in his mansion. The Doctor and Bill then return to his university office, and where they see Nardole serving him tea, which is the exact same scene they had at the beginning of the second episode. Although Nardole now notices that they've changed their clothes, and Nardole gets after the Doctor for betraying their oath. We then cut to the vault, which is full of Gallifreyan symbols, and we hear that something inside the vault starts knocking. And Nardole promises the thing inside the vault that he will go nowhere. Okay.
Bill doesn't have any problem with Sutcliffe dying.
Yeah. Although she doesn't quite see it or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we save the creature. The creature goes off. Whoop-de-doop-de-doo, right?
That's, yeah. The kids get to live in the mansion.
And the kids get to live in the mansion. It's very cool.
It's very sweet.
Let's go to Nardole being especially angry that the Doctor betrayed his oath.
I really like him having purpose and having more emotions than just like, I'm the funny chubby guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's making his character really interesting.
Yes, it is. So it's also very interesting that the Doctor basically is like, well, I'm not holding this oath, whatever this oath is. And then Nardole down in the vault, again, we get to see the vault a lot more clearly in this episode than we got to see in the first episode. And this was the first time I noticed that, it is covered with Gallifreyan symbols all over the place. And Nardole's talking, whatever is inside is knocking. And we get a little bit of explanation. Nardole's like, oh, I was rebuilt from scratch just to do this, blah, 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 blah. Very interesting. Let's talk about here, unless the vault is going to be part of your predictions, let's talk about right now what we think is in the vault, because there is a pretty obvious answer, or a pretty obvious red herring they're giving us in this episode, because it's knocking. The thing inside this vault is knocking, and it's knocking in clusters of 4, which is something the Master does.
Oh, is it?
Yes, the Master.
About the Master.
The Master in the 10th series always knocked 4 times, because it was this weird thing that was left in his brain from the Time Lords, and that's how the Time Lords controlled that version of the Master, was they always knocked 4 times. And when Nardole was in there, it was always like a little bit of a beat.
I mean, I don't think you put all the Gallifreyan symbols on there and have it not be a Gallifreyan.
Yes, this is very interesting. I don't know, I think that's a little bit too much on the nose, but yeah, I'm like, oh man. But now I'm kind of thinking, is John Sims' version of the Master in that vault? Because he was the one that always knocked.
As opposed to Missy.
Is there like some weird timey-wimey something thing that happened? I don't know. It's very interesting. I'm very intrigued by this vault. I'm intrigued even more by this vault, and especially how serious Nardole takes it.
Yes, that's more interesting to me actually than anything else, is the threat that he's implying.
Yes. All right, let's go straight into our rating based on a scale of 1 to 5, sonic screwdrivers, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. Ashley, what would you give Thin Ice?
I think Thin Ice was an okay episode.
Yes.
I didn't think it was its greatest smile, so based on that scale,
Here, Sonic, you're rating into appearance. What? No, just do it once. It'll appear on screen. You don't have to do it 4 times. You did that other.
3.
You give it a rating of 3.
3.
All right, middle of the road. I am going to agree with you. I am also going to give it 3 out of 5 sonic screwdrivers. I think it was again, as the middle of the road. It wasn't great.
If it would have been anywhere other than Victorian England, I think I would have liked it more.
That didn't really make any a difference to me. We've seen plenty of Doctor Who stories where he saves the creature that's kind of like being trapped.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, that's my biggest things about it. But I didn't really hate anything in the episode.
No.
Again, very slower paced. Bill and Peter Capaldi are doing a great job. Their chemistry is on point.
Awesome.
So yeah, I would probably rewatch this episode again as well.
Yeah.
So just there you go. All right, let's go into our prediction mode. We are going to veer and steer ourselves straight into the time vortex, and we're going to look into the future of Doctor Who. Based on this episode, Ashley, what do you think's coming in the future?
Another episode in Victorian England. What I think is actually going to come in the future is I think we're driving toward a big confrontation between Nardole and Bill that's going to wind up with them becoming allies, because right now you can see Nardole kind of putting together the idea that she's his replacement, and he doesn't like that because he's stuck.
Really?
I think so, because he's stuck, like, literally working as a valet. Like, he is working for the Doctor.
Yeah.
Bill gets to go off and do all these adventures that Nardole previously got to be a part of.
Nardole will get to go on some adventures with him, too, I think.
But we saw him go off during the last Christmas special with the Dr. Mysterio story. And I think that Nardole's going to try to confront Bill about it, but he's going to wind up spilling part of the beans on what the oath is. And then Bill is going to have a better understanding. She's going to ally with Nardole in order to get the Doctor to focus on what is inside the vault. That's what I think is happening with those two.
Wow.
What do you think is coming down the pipe for Doctor Who?
I think a lot of adventures on Earth.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, I think that's how the Doctor's going to convince himself that he's not betraying the oath.
Now we've been on Earth every
we've been on a version of Earth. The only exception is that we went on an alien planet to avoid the water.
Yes.
In the pilot, like that's the only exception. I think we might get one or two, but also like we got to see the preview for the next episode, of course, and it's all about where Bill lives, and it looks like Bill lives in a haunted house.
It's funny because it reminded me of the first Craig episode, the 11th Adventure,
Lodger,
where the house is like eating you.
Yeah, I think that that episode is gonna have something to do with. There's gonna be like an alien species that lives in the wall and grabs you. I also think we've seen pictures that the original Cybermen are going to be in the season. I think the original Cybermen are on Earth.
Oh, cool.
They're somewhere on Earth. That's what I think. And now I'm really leaning towards John Sims is in the vault. The I don't know, fourth master? I don't know. The 10th Doctor's master, John Sims, is in the vault. That's my prediction.
There you go.
Yeah. Now go down to the comments and tell us whose prediction you think is right, and then while you're down there, click subscribe.
And why not click on one of the videos that's popped up on the screen and head on over to patreon.com/Jawiin for more exclusive geeky content.
We'll see you next week for another Doctor Who review.